Greetings, Deep Dive Podcast listeners. This is your boy, Sam Orum, coming at you with another episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. Man, we've been rocking and rolling over the past few weeks. We're really excited about having an opportunity to continuously, share and empower people around the world. We've gotten so many messages and so many emails that I'm really excited about where we are and where we're going with each episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. I do want to welcome and thank all of you who are participating, who are supporting. We are on all of the major podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify and Google and, 22 other different platforms. So continue to support, like, subscribe, and follow the podcast. Hey, look, tonight's episode is going to be very, very important. And I want everybody to be able to take notes and understand the value of what it is that we're going to talk about, because we're in a situation right now where, so many things are going on around the globe, from a pandemic, multiple outbreaks of a pandemic. You're talking about economic unrest around the world, political unrest around the world. You're talking about a war, climate changing, and, just so many different things that, I think we have to really recalibrate where we are in terms of life, in terms of how we're going to move forward, in terms of what does success mean? What does success mean to us moving forward with all of these changes when we don't have the ability as readily as we've had in the past in terms of human interaction and just so many things. And when I thought about, this particular episode, and when I read through some of the emails, some of the things that people were going through and dealing with, and really wanted to discuss on this particular platform, one thing came to mind, and that was a part of Martin Luther King's speech, MLK's speech, where he talked about the fierce urgency of now. And when I look at that, when I thought about that particular notion, then it reminded me of where we are today, but in a sense of how we need to have a sense of urgency in terms of how we approach tomorrow and next month and years to come. What is that whole fierce urgency of now? Most of you already know it's just a speech that I shouldn't say just a speech. It was more than that. It was a magnificent speech done by Martin Luther King on the March on Washington. So, and he described how, what that fierce urgency of now really mean. He reminded us about, we had a divided nation at the time. We needed each other. We needed to work and interact with one another, and that we were actually stronger when we were able to come together and march and move forward together. Now, the reason I thought about this speech is simply because of where we are today. We are a divided nation. I keep telling people we're in a 51-49 society, which basically means it doesn't matter what your viewpoint is on any particular topic. Nearly half of those people, or half of the people, have a contrary type view, right? Whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's social media, whatever it is, we're in a 51-49 society. So, it doesn't matter what you say, you're going to have nearly half of the people who look at that particular thing and, there's some type of opposition or something contrary to that notion. Well, that's what a divided nation is all about. That's where we are right now. And so when we look at what we need to do to continue to thrive, remember, this podcast is all about, empowerment. It's about allowing people to grow personally. Sure, we do entertainment and we talk about that all the time, but most of the requests that I get have something to do with being empowered or learning or growing or things of that nature. So we're in a situation now, guys, where we really have to understand that we need to, and I say this all the time, we need to become the masters of our fate and the captains of our soul. That is a quote from the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley, but I say it frequently because what that means is you have to take control of your life. You have to take control of what your future looks like. And I tell people, even in my executive coaching sessions or whatever it may be, one-on-one sessions through my businesses, whatever it is, The key to your future is you creating your future. You creating your future. I've spoken to so many different people over the last, I don't know, few months, I guess, really a few years. And I think I mentioned this on a previous episode of the podcast where there seems to be a very apathetic type of reaction to life. Everybody is apathetic as a whole about life, about being great, about changing whatever it may be, X, Y, or Z. There's a sense of apathy that's going on around the world that, I don't know, it's just, there's a such thing as hell on earth and we're living it, right? So we need to understand that. So how does that relate to, the fierce urgency of now? Well, look, it just means you got to get to it right now. You got to start creating that future right now. You don't have the opportunity to be casual about life anymore, because if you're casual about life, you will become a casualty. You will no longer have an opportunity to be great because you have been casual about life in an environment that's quickly passing all of us by, right? So we got to get to it right now. We have to have that sense of urgency right now. It's more important than ever that we just don't waste time, that we don't put off things until tomorrow or the next day, or I'll do it then and do it then. You just can't do that. I was sharing with my sister yesterday that as we get older, I recognize now that every single day someone you know or know of passes away. Every single day, not every week, every single day. And for a long time, it started to bug me. It's like, what's really going on? Everybody, somebody's passing away every single day. But then you think about it, we're not getting any younger, we're actually getting older. And if we're getting older, then all of the people that we knew, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, however long it's been, they're obviously elderly at this particular point. And, it's only natural that a lot of people are passing away. Well, for me, that just reinforces that fierce urgency of now. That means we don't have time to waste. We don't know when our time will come. Whether we're young, whether we're old, it doesn't matter. By the way, I'm talking about how people become elderly and pass away, but it doesn't have to be that. There are people who are, we recognize and see that are passing every single day that, have nothing to do with their age. It could be an accident, it could be, whatever it may be. But that just reinforces the notion that we need to have that fierce urgency of now, getting it done right now. How do we survive in this particular climate, the pandemic climate, the economic climate? Inflation and these things are off the charts. They're off the charts. I could say something about that, but I won't. Just understand, inflation is off the chart. So many things are off the chart. We have to take control of our future. We have to take control of our lives. I want to give you a couple of reminders. I didn't want to keep this podcast long because part of being fiercely urgent is doing something right away. And we don't need to waste a whole lot of time gabbing about it. We need to be about it. We need to get on it. We need to start making some things happen. So part of that fierce urgency of now, part of those things, I want to give you just a couple of tools and reminders as to what that means and how you can continue to thrive and grow even in the midst of all of the things that's going on around you. First of all, you have to remember and understand that, and you got to believe this with everything that's in you, that anything is possible. It's still possible. Anything is possible. Things that have never happened before can become your reality if you have that stick-to-itiveness in terms of what you want your future to be, how you're going to create your future. Anything is possible. You guys have to think that just a few years ago, so many things that are household words or terms or conditions now, they didn't even exist a few years ago, like TikTok. We talk about TikTok, but at this particular level, it didn't even exist a few years ago. And here we are today. It is a mainstream social media platform. But we have to believe that anything is possible, even if we don't see it. I think I talked in last week's episode about this eagle giving birth to a baby eagle, and how that particular eagle has to sit on this egg for 35 straight days without any movement, kicking, or anything going on, in order for that particular baby eagle to be born. Well, that just means you in a lot of cases you have to live in an environment where something may have to happen in your life that's never happened before, or you're in that waiting period where you really don't know what the future holds, but you got to believe that anything and everything is possible. Even in the midst of all of these things and possibilities, we still have to remain humble. We have to remain humble, because being humble and having gratitude and humility, it is a part of your personal growth. One thing for me, I get a lot of edification from people, all over the world. People, they give me attaboys and thanks and kudos and all of these things, in terms of edification. But I tell you what, I cringe all the time. And I've said this before, but I cringe all the time when I get this edification, because it's not who I am. It's just what I've done. You know what I mean? I've accomplished a lot, thank God, in my life. But all of this edification is not who I am. At the core of who I am, I'm just an introverted country boy. That's at the core of who I am. All of these other things and accolades are things that I have done, accomplishments. And you're sure people want to acknowledge them. And I understand the value of edification, but I also understand the value of gratitude and remaining humble. Well, how does this relate to the fierce urgency of now? Well, that means you got to be aggressive in terms of getting to your goal. That's that fierceness and the urgency. But by the same token, you can't do it at the expense of other people. You can't do it at the expense of other people. You can't run other people over because you're fiercely urgent, right? You can't dog people out because you have some aggressive goals. You have to still remain humble. You have to maintain that humility. You have to maintain that gratitude, even in the midst of creating your future. But then you also have to be aware of everything that's going on around you in every aspect of life, because those things will determine how you go about creating your future. So awareness is very important. You have to understand, and people, they ask me a lot, how do I know so much about so many things? It's because I have to. I have to know what's going on detailed politically. I have to know what's going on in detailed economically, socially, in the health industry, the global differences in terms of nations, climate differences, different ideologies. You have to have some type of idea on all of these particular things, because you have to be aware of what's going on around you in order for you to create your future. I alluded to this earlier and I kind of chuckled because I said I wasn't going to get into it, but I am going to get into it a little bit. When we look at all of this inflation and all of this stuff that's going on. Yes, the war is a part of it. Absolutely. It is a major part. Some other things are a major part of the inflation and the economic climate. But let me just share something with you. If you thought for 1 second this particular country and government was going to dish out $2-3 trillion in PPP and EIDL and PUA and FPUA and all of this stimulus and all of this stuff, if you thought for 1 second that they were just going to give that away and say, here you go, without recouping it, you're crazy. I'm just here to tell you, it's my opinion. I have to say it's my opinion because they'll try to shut me down. But you think for 1 second they're going to give you all of that stuff and wasn't going to get it back? This stuff ain't no accident. They're going to get that money back. Believe that. But anyway, need I digress? So being aware of what's going on, and that's a part of, I say that because that's a part of being aware of what's going on around you. So you have to be able to circumvent what's going on around you, so that you can continue to create your future, right? If you don't know what's going on, then you're going to get caught up in the minutia of all of this fluff. And you're not going to be able to adjust because you're not aware of how you need to adjust. So awareness is very important. A part of being aware is being adaptable. I pride myself on being a chameleon in terms of what I do and how I approach situations. I've had the honor and blessing to sit down with kings and queens and princes around the globe, and sit down with people who have massive and huge spheres of influence throughout the UAE, in particular Dubai, and some of those areas. I've had an opportunity to speak to multiple billionaires in terms of understanding how they think, hence the book, The Mindset of a Champion. I've had an opportunity to study people, and being adaptable. The beauty of being adaptable is to be able to sit down with a king or a prince or a leader or whoever it may be in another country, right? And to be able to speak to them in a manner that shows that I understand and know exactly what I'm talking about, whether it relates to their country, their culture, or our country, our culture, whatever it may be. And I know that we have people on this podcast in over 170 countries. So to be able to sit down with these people and speak intelligently on whatever topic around the globe, I pride myself on that. Why? Because I'm adaptable. I pride myself on being able to go into the quote unquote hood, the worst parts of the worst areas of the worst cities, and be able to sit down and coach and teach and mentor and relate to anybody. Doesn't matter, what your situation, what you've done in the past, not judging. I can sit down with anybody in the hood in any environment, teach, coach, train, and mentor. That's being adaptable, and everything in between. Now, I always say that I'm just a country boy, just trying to do what I'm trying to do. But at the end of the day, I've gone through an educational system, and I've gone through a system that has allowed my capacity to grow, to adapt to any situation. So you being adaptable is going to be very important for you to understand, or to be able to create that future. And again, in order to have that fierce urgency of now, you have to have the capacity to create your future. And to create your future, you have to be adaptable. So you're starting to see how all of these things relate, right? You're starting to see how they kind of tie into each other. It's very important. Being adaptable. You have to be calm. We talked about being humble, but you have to be calm in every situation. Understanding that a part of being calm is being able to ask yourself pertinent and the proper questions. Let me tell you something. If you ask yourself a question, the mind has to, let me say that word again, has to seek an answer. So if you ask yourself a question, your mind has to seek an answer, right? And with that being the case, the questions that you ask yourself become super important. Let me give you an example. A lot of people may say, why am I so fat? Why am I so fat? Why am I so fat? I said that. Why am I so fat? And, but the mind, if you ask yourself that question, the mind has to seek an answer. So I wonder if you just tweak that question a little bit, as opposed to saying, why am I so fat? You ask yourself, what do I need to do to lose weight? Guess what? Your mind has to seek an answer. The human psyche is designed to seek pleasure and avoid pain, right? And a lot of times people ask themselves the wrong questions because they're trying to avoid pain. So they ask themselves the wrong question. Like in the same scenario, the right question is, what do I need to do to lose weight? Well, people may not want to hear the answer to that, so they'll ask themselves the wrong question, why am I so fat? Because they don't want to face what they need to do to lose weight. And when I say they, I'm talking about me. I'm one of those individuals that I know what I need to do. I know exactly what I need to do. I need to stop eating all the stuff that I'm eating. I need to work out more. You need to do cardio. I need to drink more water. I know exactly what I need to do. But instead of doing that, I make excuses for this, that, and thus, right? That's just human nature, to seek pleasure and to avoid pain. But for you, for us, for everybody that's looking forward to creating their own future, you have to understand that, those questions control the conversation in your mind, and being able to be calm and relaxed in that particular thought process. That's why so many people meditate. They believe in meditation. One of my friends, Stanley Doucette, an incredible leader. He has a podcast as well called Let's Talk with Stanley Doucette. He had a guest, season 1 of his podcast. I apologize. I don't remember the guest's name, but I do remember it was a lady, and she was powerful in talking about meditation and the value of meditation. You may want to go and take a look at that podcast or listen to that podcast. Again, it's Let's Talk with Stanley Doucette. And it's entitled Meditation. And it's a young lady, and I learned so much from her and that podcast about the value of meditation. Well, when I'm talking about staying calm and remaining calm in your thought processes, that's why so many people meditate, right? So that's very important. Then you got to take care of yourself, guys. Take care of yourself first. And when I talk about this, I said this in the past, sometimes you want to eat the big piece of chicken. What does eating a big piece of chicken mean? That means you don't necessarily have to leave it for your guests or company or this type of, eat the big piece of chicken. Take care of yourself. Use the good towels. Use the good dishes. Take the plastic off of the furniture. My country folk, you know what I'm talking about, right? Treat yourself. If you're the goose that lays the golden eggs, then that goose has to be taken care of. Because without the goose, there are no golden eggs. So you have to take care of yourself, whatever that means. Whatever that means, you have to take care of yourself. Another part of building yourself up and creating that future with a sense of urgency is just making sure that you listen to your gut, your intuition, your spiritual connection, whatever it may be. There are a lot of times where I just cannot physically come up with an answer. And I've been told time and time again by people who are in the know and understand this, just give it to God. Don't always try to control every aspect of your life. I'm a control freak, right? I admit that. I like to control my life, but then there are things that you just absolutely cannot control. You just have to give it to God. Well, being able to give it to God, a lot of times you have to listen to your gut, listen to your intuitive spirit, your intuitive feelings, that something that's permeating your soul that's saying go left or go right. You have to listen to that. It is a message from your creator in a lot of cases, giving you direction. I prayed to be led, so why not be led? Does that make sense? So you have to do that. And then you also, a part of that is using your emotions to continue to control the situation. I like to call this having something called relaxed intensity. This emotional aspect of your life is having relaxed intensity. So what does that mean? How does that relate to the fierce urgency of now? Well, obviously that intensity is the fierceness of creating your future, right? That intensity. But when I say relaxed intensity, that means you don't need to be overbearing. That means you don't need to be out of control. That means you're always in control. You're always in a situation where you know what you're doing. Even if you're intense, you know exactly what you're doing, even if you're intense. Okay. But you want to have that relaxed intensity. So just understanding, guys, as we close out this episode, that whole fierce urgency of now. I would go back and listen. If you haven't listened to that speech, I will go back and listen to that speech, because there are some jewels in that speech that I think you should really pay attention to. Chew up the meat and spit out the bone. Whatever is relevant to you, Make it relevant to you. Make it relevant to what you need to do to create your future. I talk to a lot of people in my businesses, and I've said this before, and sometimes it saddens me because, people, they're hurting financially, they're hurting spiritually, they're hurting physically, they're just hurting. So many people are hurting. But what really saddens me, in a lot of cases, people are hurting and have no desire or no intensity or no urgency in changing their lives. They just think because they look good, or they pay their tithes, or they are good people, life is just going to come to them. Let me tell you something, and most of the time I tell you, when I share something, it is my opinion. I tell you it's my opinion. Well, let me tell you this time, this is not my opinion. This is a fact. If you sit on your ass and wait for something to happen, nothing will ever happen. It's not going to happen. You have to have a sense of urgency in terms of creating your future. You have to have a sense of, worth, self-worth. That means taking care of yourself. That means understanding your future. That means you can't be, as I said earlier, casual about life, because you will be a casualty. You will not survive life. Life will chew you up and spit you out. So when people are offering you an opportunity to change your life, don't be passive about it. Don't be casual about it. Understand that you can't fall off the bottom. What do you have to lose, right? Now, everybody has to carve out their own niche of what their future should look like. But we're in a situation where if you don't have a sense of urgency right now, because decisions are being made right now on your future by people who are the decision makers. They're making decisions about your future that if you knew what those decisions were, you would run to take control of your future. Not walk, run. You would run to take control of your future. There are a lot of people don't worry about gas prices being $5, $6, $10 a gallon. They don't care because they have built beyond $5 a gallon gas. They don't care that, a bottle of whatever, milk or bread is expensive. They don't care because they have built beyond that scarcity. I need to write that down, building beyond scarcity. Because we need to talk about that. That's something else. That's a whole nother topic that we need to talk about. But you have to build and live beyond scarcity, because if gas prices are an issue for you, if the inflation in food prices and all of these things, if those things are an issue for you, then what I would suggest is that we build our sphere, our tent, our capacity bigger than our challenges. That means we just make more money, make more connections, do whatever it is. I mean, I know people say, well, Sam, is easy to say. I mean, but what's the alternative? Yeah, it is easy to say, but what's the alternative? Live in misery or die. I mean, you know what I mean? If you're going to live, then why not have a quality of life and not just exist? That's all I'm saying. And in order to have that quality of life, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. You're going to have that fierce urgency of now. Look, we can't wait to 2023 and say we're going to do this. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I've started, and I'll close on this note, but one of the things that I've started doing is not making, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year goals. I've started making 90-day goals, because what I've noticed over the past few years, what I said a year ago or 2 years ago is absolutely not relevant today. Things have changed so rapidly that what I talked about and planned about 2 years ago is not even relevant today. I even look at my company prior to the pandemic, it was a totally different platform than it is today. And I wouldn't have believed it or dreamed it in a million years that it would have changed so much so quickly, just based on the fact that the situations and circumstances around me change. So I would recommend something, like that to you guys as well. Maybe a 90-day or 6-month game plan moving forward, taking into consideration the changes in life and your surroundings. But if you have a 90-day goal, guess what happens? You're forced to have a sense of urgency because you don't have 5 years to get it done. You got 90 days to get it done. I hope that makes sense. So with that, guys, hey, look, I hope you understand the value of creating your future. I hope you understand the value of having that sense of urgency right now. I hope you understand the value of taking a listen to MLK's speech, the March on Washington, where he talks in particular about the fierce urgency of now. We're in a situation, guys, where we absolutely must, not should, but must make some changes moving forward. We must create our future. We must become those, captains of our soul. And in order to do that, you got to have a sense of urgency. You can't be passive about it. You can't no longer depend on family, friends, or the federal government. You have to take those things into your own hand. You have to take that control. So with that, guys, I appreciate everybody joining us on this particular episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, download, and share. Let's continue to build this audience. Take a look at it on YouTube at the Deep Dive Podcast with Sam Orum. Go to my website, the Deep Dive Podcast.live, Live, okay, .live. There are a ton of episodes there. One thing that makes me feel really good, I've had a lot of people who said they've gone back and they listened to different episodes as it was relevant to their lives, and they've grown from that. And I take pride in that. So go back and listen to some of the previous episodes, some of the things that could be relevant in helping you to create your future and just being great. All right. So continue to follow us. Let's be great together, guys. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you on the beaches of the world. Let's continue to be great together. God bless, and we'll see you soon.